Cheating wife begs to be taken back at my wedding ceremony. The warm glow of the evening sun bathed the church in a golden hue, casting a serene light on the guests gathered to celebrate my new beginning. After years of heartache, I was finally standing at the altar, ready to commit my life to someone who had shown me nothing but loyalty and love. As the ceremony reached its most solemn moment, a commotion stirred near the entrance. There she was, Jessica, my ex-wife, the woman who had shattered my world just 2 years ago. Dressed in a simple, pale dress that stood in stark contrast to the vibrant celebration around her, she walked down the aisle as though she belonged there. Gasps rippled through the crowd, whispers spreading like wildfire. I stood frozen, my fiancée, Lisa, clutching my hand tightly. Jessica's tear-streaked face revealed her anguish as she approached. Her voice quivered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Ryan, please. I made a mistake. Don't do this. Take me back." The audacity of her plea was staggering. Memories of discovering her infidelity surged through me like a tidal wave. The late nights she spent working, the mysterious texts, the hollow explanations, they all led to the day I found undeniable proof that she had been unfaithful. Her betrayal had destroyed me, leaving me questioning my worth and my ability to trust. But Lisa had helped me rebuild. She showed me that love could be kind and selfless, a partnership built on mutual respect and unwavering support. And here, in front of her and everyone we knew, Jessica was attempting to dismantle the life I had carefully pieced together. "I don't know what you're doing here, Jessica," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "But you need to leave." Her sobs grew louder. "Ryan, I was stupid. I didn't realize what I had until I lost you. He didn't mean anything. I love you. I've always loved you." Lisa's grip on my hand never faltered. She leaned in and whispered, "It's your moment, Ryan. Do what feels right, but remember what you deserve." Jessica fell to her knees, her cries echoing in the silent church. "Please, Ryan, don't marry her. Give me another chance." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes on me. Looking at Jessica, I realized that the pain she had caused no longer defined me. I had moved on, not just to someone better, but to a better version of myself. "No, Jessica," I said firmly. "I deserve happiness, and I found it with Lisa. Please leave us in peace." A few guests moved to escort her out as she continued to plead, but I turned my focus back to Lisa. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but they held no doubt, only love and understanding. The ceremony resumed, and when Lisa and I exchanged our vows, I felt an unshakable certainty that I was exactly where I was meant to be. Outside, the sun set on an unforgettable day, and with it, the lingering shadows of my past. As the reception began, the earlier disruptions seemed to fade into a distant memory. The soft glow of string lights and the hum of cheerful conversations filled the garden, where Lisa and I celebrated with our closest friends and family. I could finally breathe again, the weight of the past lifted from my shoulders. But as the evening wore on, I couldn't help but notice a figure lingering near the edge of the venue. Jessica hadn't left entirely. She stood by the gate, her face partially hidden in the shadows, watching as I danced with Lisa. For a moment, guilt tugged at me, not because I felt I had made the wrong choice, far from it, but because I had once loved her, and seeing someone you cared about in pain is never easy. But that guilt was fleeting, replaced by a firm resolve. Jessica's choices had led us here. I owed her nothing more than the closure I had already given. Lisa must have noticed my gaze because she leaned in and whispered, "You don't need to worry about her, Ryan. This is our day." Her words anchored me. I nodded, pulling her closer as the music shifted to a slow, romantic melody. As we swayed under the soft glow of the lights, the crowd around us seemed to blur, leaving only Lisa and me in focus. This was our moment, a celebration of the life we were building together. Later in the evening, as Lisa mingled with guests, I stepped away for a moment to get some air. The cool night breeze was a welcome relief from the warmth of the crowded venue. I hadn't been outside long before I heard footsteps behind me. "Ryan," Jessica's voice called softly. I turned to find her standing a few feet away. Her eyes were red and swollen, but her posture was calmer now. "What are you doing here, Jessica?" "I thought I made myself clear." "You did," she admitted, her voice trembling. I needed to say I'm sorry. Not for what I did today, though that too, but for everything. I ruined us, and I hate myself for it. I didn't know how to handle seeing you happy without me." Her confession was raw, but it didn't change anything. "Jessica, I've forgiven you for what happened, but forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean going back. You hurt me in ways I didn't think I could recover from, but I did, and I'm not going to jeopardize the life I've built for something that's already broken." Tears welled in her eyes again, but she nodded. "I understand. I really do. I wish I could go back and undo it all. We all have regrets," I said gently. "But life moves forward, not backward. I hope you find peace, Jessica. I really do." With that, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness beyond the gates. I watched until she was gone, then turned back toward the light and laughter of the reception. When I returned to the party, Lisa greeted me with a smile that erased the lingering tension in my chest. She didn't ask where I'd been or what had happened, trusting me enough not to need an explanation. The rest of the night passed in a blur of joy and celebration. As Lisa and I danced together one last time under the starlit sky, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Jessica's appearance had been a test of my resolve, but it had only reaffirmed my choice. Lisa was my future, and the life we were beginning together was the only one I wanted. The wedding ceremony had been perfect until Jessica, my ex-wife, appeared uninvited. As Lisa and I stood at the altar, Jessica interrupted, tears streaming down her face. "Ryan, please, take me back," she begged, her voice echoing through the church. Her betrayal had once shattered me, but standing there, hand in hand with Lisa, I realized how far I'd come. "No, Jessica," I said firmly. "I've moved on. Please leave." Jessica's sobs faded as she was escorted out, and I turned to Lisa, her eyes full of understanding. Together, we exchanged vows, starting a new chapter free from the shadows of the past. As the reception unfolded later that evening, the tension from Jessica's appearance had mostly dissipated. Laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses filled the air as Lisa and I celebrated surrounded by family and friends. Yet, I couldn't help but notice the occasional glances from guests, their earlier shock still lingering in their minds. Lisa, ever gracious, smiled and mingled effortlessly, her warmth smoothing over any lingering awkwardness. Watching her move through the crowd, I felt a surge of pride. She was the kind of woman I never thought I'd deserve after what I had been through, a partner who not only loved me but brought out the best in me. As the evening progressed, I slipped away to get some air. The cool night breeze was refreshing, and for a moment, I allowed myself to reflect. The confrontation with Jessica had stirred old wounds, but it had also reminded me of how much I had healed. I wasn't alone for long. A familiar voice broke the quiet. "Ryan?" I turned to find Jessica, standing a few feet away, her figure barely visible in the dim light. She looked worn, her earlier defiance replaced by a quiet resignation. "What are you doing here, Jessica?" I asked, my tone calm but firm. She hesitated, her voice trembling. I couldn't leave without saying, "I'm sorry for everything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed you to know." Her words hung in the air, heavy with regret. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. This was a woman I had once loved. After all, even if her actions had made that love impossible to sustain. "I've already forgiven you, Jessica," I said quietly. "Not for your sake, but for mine. Carrying that anger wasn't helping me move on, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean going back. You made your choice, and so did I." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. I see that now. I wish I had realized it before I lost you. Her words were raw, but they didn't stir the emotions they once might have. Instead, I felt a strange sense of closure. I hope you find happiness, Jessica, I said gently. But I found mine, and nothing will take that away. She stood there for a moment longer before turning and walking away into the night. I watched her go, her figure fading into the shadows, and felt an overwhelming sense of relief. When I returned to the reception, Lisa greeted me with a warm smile, her eyes searching mine. She didn't ask where I had been or what had happened. She trusted me completely. Instead, she took my hand and led me back to the dance floor. As we swayed to the soft melody of the music, the world around us seemed to blur. All that mattered was the woman in my arms and the life we were beginning together. Jessica's appearance had been a test, but it only reaffirmed what I already knew. Lisa was my future, my peace, and my home. And as the stars twinkled above us, I felt a deep sense of gratitude that I had chosen to walk away from the pain of my past and into the warmth of a love that truly deserved me. The reception carried on into the night, the atmosphere vibrant with love and joy. Lisa and I moved through the crowd, sharing moments with friends and family who had come to celebrate our union. Despite Jessica's earlier intrusion, the evening felt magical, and each passing moment reinforced the sense that I was exactly where I was meant to be. At one point, I found myself sitting with my best man, Eric, who raised his glass with a knowing smile. Man, you handled that like a champ. I don't think I could have kept my cool if my ex showed up at my wedding like that. I chuckled, shaking my head. It wasn't easy, believe me. But Lisa, she makes it easier to focus on what matters. I'm lucky to have her. Eric nodded, glancing toward Lisa, who was laughing with a group of friends across the garden. You are. And don't forget, you've worked hard to get here, Ryan. You deserve this happiness. As the night wore on, Lisa and I stole away for a moment of quiet. The garden, now lit only by the soft glow of lanterns and the moonlight, was peaceful. We sat together on a small bench, her head resting on my shoulder. Are you okay? She asked softly, her voice full of care. I nodded, turning to kiss her forehead. I am now. I think seeing Jessica today was closure. She reminded me of how much I've grown and how much I have to be grateful for. Mostly you. She smiled, her eyes shimmering. I'm glad. You don't have to carry that anymore, Ryan. This is our life now. Our quiet moment was interrupted by the sound of guests calling for us to return for one last dance. Laughing, we stood and made our way back to the center of the garden, where the crowd had formed a circle around us. The music began, a slow, tender melody that wrapped around us like a warm embrace. Lisa and I swayed together, our movements effortless and in sync. As I looked into her eyes, the world around us seemed to disappear. This was it, our beginning. The life we had built together was rooted in trust, love, and an unshakable bond that no intrusion could break. As the song ended and the cheers of our guests filled the night, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Jessica's chapter in my life was over, and in its place, a new story had begun, one filled with hope, love, and a future that was ours to create. Hand in hand, Lisa and I stepped into that future, leaving the past exactly where it belonged. Behind us, as the night wound down, Lisa and I shared one last quiet moment under the stars. Her hand in mine felt like a promise, one I knew I'd keep forever. Are you ready to leave the past behind? She asked, her eyes warm and steady. I already have, I replied, pulling her closer. The music faded, replaced by the cheers of our guests as we walked toward the car, surrounded by sparklers and laughter. Together, we stepped into the next chapter of our lives, leaving behind the shadows and embracing the light of our future as Lisa and I drove away into the night, the glow of the reception fading in the distance. I glanced at her, my heart full. This is it, I said softly. She smiled, resting her hand on mine. Our forever starts now. And with that, we left the past behind. Carrying only love and hope into the life we were building together, as the car sped down the quiet road, Lisa leaned her head on my shoulder, her warmth grounding me. "Thank you for choosing me," she whispered. I kissed her forehead. There was never a doubt. The stars above seemed brighter than ever, lighting the path to our new beginning. Together, unstoppable and free from the past. The road stretched out before us, quiet and peaceful under a canopy of stars. Lisa rested her head on my shoulder, her fingers intertwined with mine, and the world outside the car felt like it had faded away. It was just us, the hum of the engine, and the glow of our future waiting to unfold. "Thank you for choosing me," she murmured, her voice soft but steady. I turned to look at her, my heart swelling. "There was never a choice, Lisa. You've always been the one." Her smile was small but radiant, the kind that spoke volumes without words. The night's earlier chaos seemed so far away now, a faint memory that had only served to solidify what I already knew. Lisa was my present and my future, and nothing could take that away. We drove in silence for a while, the kind of comfortable quiet that only comes with deep understanding. I thought about everything that had led to this moment, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the doubts I had about ever finding love again. And then I thought about Lisa, the way she had walked into my life with her gentle strength and showed me that love didn't have to hurt. "Do you think she'll be okay?" Lisa asked suddenly, her voice pulling me from my thoughts. "Jessica?" I asked, glancing at her. She nodded. I sighed. Consider my answer. "I think she'll figure things out eventually. She's got her own journey to take, and it's not one I'm meant to be part of anymore. I hope she finds peace, but I can't carry her pain or her choices. I've learned to let that go." Lisa squeezed my hand, her expression thoughtful. "You're a good man, Ryan. I'm proud of how you handled everything today." Her words touched me more than she could know. "It's because of you," I admitted. "You taught me what it means to love and to be loved. I wouldn't be here without you." We pulled into the driveway of our home, a modest but warm place we had chosen together. As I turned off the engine, Lisa looked at me with a smile that made my chest tighten. "This is the start of everything, isn't it?" she said. "It is," I replied, leaning in to kiss her, and I couldn't be more ready. We stepped inside, hand in hand, leaving the weight of the past outside the door. The house felt alive with possibilities, every corner a blank canvas for the memories we would create together. That night, as we lay in bed, I held Lisa close, her steady breathing lulling me into a peace I hadn't felt in years. Jessica's unexpected appearance at the wedding had been a final test, but it had only served to strengthen my resolve. The pain of the past no longer had a hold on me. I had found love, not in a place of desperation, but in a partnership that made me better, stronger, and happier. And as I drifted off to sleep with Lisa in my arms, I knew this was a life I was always meant to have. One filled with love, trust, and a future that stretched as far as the stars' morning light filtered through the curtains, gently waking us from our first night as husband and wife. Lisa stirred beside me, her hair a tousled mess and her face glowing with that peaceful warmth I'd come to cherish. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter," I said, my voice soft and teasing. She smiled without opening her eyes, nestling closer. "Good morning, Mr. Carter. How does it feel to officially be stuck with me?" I chuckled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Feels like I won the lottery. Forever doesn't seem long enough." Her laugh was light, a melody I knew I'd never tire of. We stayed like that for a while, wrapped in the comfort of each other, the world outside feeling miles away. It was a small, perfect moment. Just us, no interruptions, no lingering shadows of the past. Eventually, we got up and shared breakfast together, a simple meal made special by the ease of being in each other's company. The day stretched ahead, filled with nothing but possibilities. We talked about little things, plans for the week, where we'd store the gifts from the wedding, and how we couldn't wait for the honeymoon. But beneath the mundane, there was a shared understanding. This was the start of a life we were building brick by brick, moment by moment. As we cleaned up the dishes, Lisa paused and turned to me, her expression serious. "Ryan, I need you to know something." I set the plate down, giving her my full attention. "What is it?" She hesitated, her eyes searching mine. "I know how much you've been through, and I know that trusting someone again wasn't easy for you. I just want you to know, I'll never take that for granted. I'll never give you a reason to doubt us." Her words hit me like a wave, not because I doubted her, but because it was the kind of reassurance I hadn't realized I still needed. I took her hands in mine, pulling her close. "I believe you, Lisa. I've always believed you, and I promise the same to you. No matter what life throws at us, I'll always choose you." Her smile was radiant, and in that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The storms of the past had finally passed, leaving behind clear skies and a love I knew would endure. The rest of the day was unremarkable in the best way possible, filled with laughter, stolen kisses, and quiet moments that felt like home. And as we lay in bed that night, our hands intertwined, I realized that our love wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic moments. It was in the everyday. The way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention, the way her laughter filled every corner of the house, and the way she made me feel like the best version of myself. Jessica had once been my world, but that world had crumbled. Lisa was my new beginning, my foundation, and the life we were building together was more beautiful than I had ever imagined. And for the first time in years, I felt truly free. Free to love, free to trust, and free to live the life I had always deserved. With the woman who had shown me what love was supposed to be, the days turned into weeks, and our life settled into a rhythm, simple, joyful, and full of promise. Every morning, I watched Lisa move through our home with a smile, and every evening, I found peace in her presence. We weren't just building a life. We were creating a foundation, a partnership rooted in trust, understanding, and unwavering love. No shadows lingered, no doubts remained, just us and the quiet certainty that this was forever.